due to the first energy crisis, and through the years, we've been watchdogging the utility companies here in Indiana. That's our kind of our main goal. Data centers popped on our radar back in April of last year when we found out that Amazon, how many people have heard of the New Carlisle Amazon data center project? Found out that that was gonna, the amount of power that was needed would equal Indianapolis, and just for one project, and we scratched our head and said, how are they going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for it? How are they going to power it? Excuse me. But and that's what got us into this journey here in Indiana. My job's similar to what I'm doing right now. I get to go across the state and talk to groups of people, organize communities, and since February, we've been in contact with about 24 communities that have had data centers. And not one of those communities have said, yeah, let's bring it in. Decision makers, they're kind of fans of it sometimes, but folks like yourself are continue to help and fight back, right? Just a real quick, how many people know what a data center is? Have a pretty good idea. Okay. So data centers, and we will share these slides as well in the Facebook group. Thank you, Ray. But data centers are warehouses containing computer systems, servers, storage devices, networking equipment, that store, process, and manage data. When you get on your internet every day, the physical manifestation of the cloud is data centers. And out in Northern Virginia, there's a place called Data Center Alley. About 70% of our internet goes through Data Center Alley every day in this country. The ones that are coming here are not used for, or most of them are not used for regular internet usage. The data centers that are coming, the reason why they're coming is for AI, for generative AI. Everybody knows about ChatGPT, correct? That's the reason why all these projects are coming to Indiana, and I'll get to, well, I'll just say we're tracking over 40 projects at this point across Indiana, and that's just the ones that we know about. So about the last 2 weeks, I think there's been about half a dozen to 10 new projects that have popped up. So it's kind of like whack-a-mole, but that's the reason why they're coming. You'll hear, I bring that up because I hear decision makers or the developers come in and say, well, we need these data centers. We need them to keep our internet going. You know, there was a gentleman down in Morgan County on the planning commission that said, the reason why we need these is because of this. And I just kind of scratched my head and said, is it though? Do we need these, or are these just generative AI data centers? That's the reason why they're coming. It's become a gold rush, if you will. They're looking for willing communities, or looking for the path of least resistance. And of course, now we have Wolcott and possibility of Ramona, which we'll talk about. But the reason why they need these data centers, so many of them, is because they have to train those models. You know, ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 5, the sixth one, and every time they train those models, they have to, it becomes bigger. They have to train with more computational power and compute. So that's again a reason that's driving this gold rush of data centers that are coming to Indiana and all across the country as well. Why are they locating, or why are they coming to Indiana? Beyond what I just said, we've decided to take quite good care of them and subsidize the data centers. States, we have as of 2019, we have a sales tax exemption law that was passed that gives data centers up to 50 years of sales tax exemptions. Yeah. When the State House passes something that has to do with our taxes, they're supposed to do the financials, do a financial analysis to see how it impacts our communities. They forgot to do that year. Maybe they didn't forget, I'm not sure. So we don't know how much money all these data centers, if they get hooked up, if they go, how much money how much tax dollars are going to be avoided from these data centers, I should say. But we have a favorable regulatory environment, meaning our state lawmakers are very friendly with industry. I'm going to be very real about that, but we have a utility commission who's also very friendly with the industry as well. We are the crossroads of America, so not only with roads, but transmission lines. We've got transmission lines going all across the state, pipelines going all across the state, and what the data center developers are looking for, they want to make it as easy as possible, so they're looking for land that is close to transmission lines generally. Kind of like the solar developers as well, but so that's what they're looking for. Almost every single data center that I've seen in the state has been close to the transmission lines. They're looking for generation. They need power. These things are, as I said, extraordinarily power hungry. And we in Indiana, we're at the crossroads of two different grids. PJM on the east of us, we have a little bit of PJM up in northeast Indiana, and where we're at right now is called MISO, and they can transfer power back and forth, and all that good stuff. So, and infrastructure, they're looking for good fiber optic networks, highways, railroads, to build these data centers. It's a tremendous amount of construction that's involved, so they want to get it there as quick as possible. Other key factors, lower cost of land. And I've talked to some farmers. I think 15,000 an acre is probably the going rate here in Indiana. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I've heard stories of Virginia. They're trying to expand out there in Data Center Alley, and some of the acreage out there is going for. I saw they bought a beloved market, a market that's been around for decades, but $4.2 million an acre. That that's an exception, but I've heard other stories of $2 million an acre out in Virginia. Here, they get it for maybe $100,000. That's what the kind of going rate is, but they're coming for low cost of land, low cost of labor, lower state business taxes. As I mentioned, they got that sweet subsidy that they have. Proximity, they like to have, according to Google. Google came to Indianapolis and we stopped them, but Google said we like to be close to population centers. So Chicago, that's why a lot of data centers are coming to Northwest Indiana. Indianapolis is getting surrounded by proposed data center projects. And the natural disaster risk. We have tornadoes, but we're not on a fault line, we're not in a hurricane area. So those are some of the reasons why they're coming to Indiana. As I said, we have more than 40 proposed data center projects in Indiana. That's what we're tracking. It's getting closer to 50, I think, at this point. As of yesterday, 13 of those proposals have been stopped by communities. And yesterday it's kind of 12 and a half, because yesterday they said, well, the developers said we're gonna reconfigure our plans and come back in a few months. We'll see if they do or not, but that was in Clinton County. We've had communities just like yourselves across the state who have pushed back and stopped them all across the state within the last 16 to 18 months. I'm not sure where we're at across, compared to other states, but I think we might be leading the country. I'm not 100% sure about that, but we do have three big projects that are under construction. That is New Carlisle. They just switched on phase 1 of their data center campus. Fort Wayne, Indiana with Google, and Jeffersonville with Meta. And we've got some other big players, like in Lebanon, Indiana was Meta as well, but 3 are under construction at this point. The type of companies, we've got really two types of companies. We have the big 4 big tech companies. That's Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Those are the big 4. And then you have a bunch of other smaller, they're called merchant data center operators. QTS, Vantage, Provident, all these different names. It's just kind of head spinning to keep track of. But the merchant data centers, we were on a tour earlier this year down at the Hammond Data Center, and they came in and said, this is like a hotel for data. So we'll build this thing. If you want to rent it out, we'll do a 6 month, a year contract, 3 years. So they're just kind of looking for the whoever's going to pay the most type of thing. And then, on that note, if in my experience, what I've seen, the big tech companies, they'll hide behind LLCs. They won't tell you who they are. And the merchant data centers are like, yeah, we're PTS. So the big tech companies are very sensitive to bad PR, just FYI. So they don't want to reveal themselves until they absolutely have to. And in the situation down in Monrovia, even after they got permission to rezone and do all that, they just came out and said we're Google. It was about 6 months after they got all their paperwork done. Again, the reason there's a big difference between the old school data centers that run our internet versus these new hyperscaler data centers. The reason why we have so many concerns is because if you look on your Google, if you look up something on Google versus ChatGPT, it uses about 10 times more power. So these data centers use about 10 times more power than normal data centers, and we don't have the power. We have to build power generation to power these data centers. So nationwide ramification. Show of hands. How many people have like really high utility bills this summer? Electric bills. Anybody? If you didn't raise your hand, you were very lucky, because we've seen huge rate increases, and part of the reason why is because of data centers. It's not, at this point in Indiana, it's not that we're paying for power plants yet. It's that they're using so much energy. When NIPSCO has to pay for power off the grid, they have to pay the going rate off the grid. And because there's such an energy crunch, data centers are gobbling up all that power. And our neighbors next door to us, PJM, their wholesale power price on the market went up 267% in 1 year. And that's because of the data center demands. So that's part of the reason why our bills are getting higher, and also they have to pay for transmission lines to connect these things because they use so much power, they can't run off the older transmission, they need to upgrade. So that's part of the reason why the bills are higher. And then that's before we get into, okay, we need to build a power plant to power these things. And the way we'll get into how the laws are set up here in Indiana, but we have to pay for those power plants too, even though we're not the end user. So, but that really hasn't started here in Indiana. So, a big concern of ours as well. I mean, just like with the developers, there's a lack of transparency. We don't know who the developers are. We don't know what the projects look like. Every single data center that I've seen, they put out a very shiny, this is what it looks like, but they're not going to tell you exactly what, how they're going to do this or that. And that's the same thing with what we're experiencing. We don't know how much power they're going to use ultimately. We're guesstimating at a certain point. So it's kind of hard to plan for the future if you don't know how much power is coming to the grid. So, and apologies for the technical issues today, but and again, what we're seeing already, there was a report that just came out last week or this week. It's all kind of blurring together, but Indiana is anticipated that for this year, our bill increase is about $22 a month is anticipated, which we're the #1 in the nation. So we're seeing these data center. Yes. Yeah, sorry about that. So there was a report that just came out that said, you know, it looked at how our bills are going up, and Indiana was number one. It was about $22 a month across the whole country. Our electric bills. Yeah.
Always wanted to be number one at something.
You know, they talk about jobs. There are a lot of construction jobs with data centers. It takes a lot of work. They're cranking them out pretty quickly. Amazon, I think, went from farmland to the first phase of that data center project in like 9 months, maybe a year. But after those jobs go away, the jobs that are produced are anywhere from 30 to 50, depending on who you talk to, per building. A lot of those jobs, and again, Ray and I went to take a tour. We saw 2 people there, other than the security people. So not a lot of jobs, and we did the analysis of how many jobs were created for every 1 megawatt of power used. And for regular economic development, you know, industry, commercial, that sort of thing, 41 jobs per 1 megawatt. 1 megawatt, by the way, is you can power about 800 to 1,200 homes. To get you an idea of how much power that is. The data centers, it was 0.26 per megawatt. So, yes, sir. Yes. Good question. Just FYI, like you hear that, you hear people. Well, I'll just say, you know, the powers that be, the big tech CEOs, the idea is we're going to do AI and then everybody's just going to lose their job. So we're doing that, but that's already starting to happen. But to me, you know, they'll never say it's like because of AI directly. It was they hired a lot of people during COVID, and they're like, we need to cut the bone, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So anything to kind of go ahead, sir. How big is the building? The one that we went to was very, very tiny. It was only 100,000 square feet. So that's considered small, but generally they're running 250, 300,000 square feet. To put that in easier terms, a few Walmarts together for one building, but they're trying to scale up and say we have to scale up at any cost. So they're talking, like Meta's talking about one that they want to build that's the size of Manhattan, which I don't know how you can even do that, but what they're doing, instead of having, you know, just one giant building, they're like Amazon is, they started off, they said we're going to do 16 300,000 square foot, 200,000 square foot buildings. Now it's 32. So they're expanding outward instead of building massive building. I mean, it's a big building, but I can't remember which community it was. Somebody talked about 1 million square foot building as well. So, yes, sir. If you talk to people in the industry, they say what they're doing right now is already obsolete. So that's a longer story. We can talk about AI and kind of why everybody's driving towards this thing. But just in a very short way, what happened was when ChatGPT came out, and all of a sudden they were like, we have to build data centers. We got to scale. We got to build all these data centers, and all the other big tech companies followed suit. And if you hear about like DeepSeek, has anybody heard of DeepSeek that came out earlier this year? Okay. It's a Chinese startup. They used, I think they trained the model for $5 million or something like that. It uses 1/10 of the energy that OpenAI does. And it's open source, so you can just download it on your computer and run it off your computer. and you don't have to worry about it being connected to 50 data centers and that sort of thing. So again, if you talk to people in the industry, they're saying we don't even need to do this to be able to have, you know, our generative AI.
Not really.
No.
So yeah, Joe was bringing up the point that there's already empty warehouses, empty buildings that they could possibly go to. And you see that down in Indianapolis. There was a huge boom of warehousing. And I got friends out there in Hancock County. One lady lost her home, you know, got pretty much forced out of her home, and they ended up not building a warehouse where her house was. But I think 40 to 50% of those buildings are empty now. So it begs the question, like, why not go there? But data centers have to be custom built for AI or for regular data centers. They have to do extensive upgrades and whatnot for that. But so yeah, it's a good question. Like, are we just going through another boom and bust? And that's our position. Is this is an overbuild. So yes. What happens if, like, 5 years from now they build a thing and it kind of? That's a great question. They don't really talk about that. You know, they and I'm not, you know, just based off what they say. We're going to be here for a long time. We're going to be here for 50 years. You know, so a lot of communities that I've worked with are very concerned about that. What are we going to do? Is it just going to be another empty warehouse type of building? Because, you know, I guess we could have like a big like a skate park or something. I'm not sure, but you know. Yes.
What's the one more question that we'll continue on?
I'm kind of rolling into it. I apologize too. It's been a long week. This is my third day in a row that I've been in communities talking to data centers, but it's been an interesting week.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Jim Bolin. If you really want to know where it's going to go, just walk out the door and look at magnetation. If everybody knows, that was the number one big thing that we're going to save White County. Look outside there. Yep. So if you want to know where it's going to go, you can drive by it.
Say, how's the county benefit from it if they give them a tax abatement for 50 years?
Well, I was going to get into the other piece of the tax part, because they always ask for a tax abatement versus a tax break. And just to put a pin on that, the tax breaks, they didn't do the financials, but we did the analysis just for their electricity use. A 1 gigawatt average size data center would save $34.5 million a year for 1.7 over 50 years.
For who? For NIPSCO?
For the tech company, for the end user. NIPSCO's and the utilities are really interested in this because for every dollar they spend, they get a profit back. So that's why they're very excited about these data centers, because they can build and get a lot of profit. So, but they also ask for local tax abatements, and there's a little bit of variation there, but they'll ask for a 10-year, 100% property tax abatement, so they don't have to pay property taxes for 10 years.
What about the homeowners? Do they benefit anyway?
Are you an LLC, sir?
No.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not trying to be snarky, but yeah, we should all file as an LLC. Maybe we'll get some tax abatements ourselves. But so, and then they'll ask for anywhere from a 20 to 40 year personal property tax abatement, and generally 100% as well. So they don't have to pay for the things that are inside the building as well. So to your question, there's a long way to get around it. What is the benefit to the community? We're going to raise our electric bills. We have to subsidize these multi-trillion-dollar corporations through our electric bills, and that money that's not going into our community. I mean, we have right now they're cutting services for Hoosiers, you know, services that keep people above, you know, their head above the water, and these guys are getting a free pass, and you know, I'm not gonna get too mad about it, but right now, but it's a little, it's very upsetting to me that we're subsidizing multi-trillion-dollar corporations.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too good.
I don't think so. So, but what they'll say is, I mean, there's a lot of different elements going on. And I just want to say too, no two fights are alike. You know, there's little variations and everything. But what I've heard from decision makers when they say, yeah, we're bringing in Google. Look at this. We're getting to the 21st century. And it's like, okay, for AI, okay. Construction jobs, and what they do, instead of paying taxes, they have what they call pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And they'll give anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year for 10 years or 50 years, or, you know, so, and that to me is like, you know, you're a multi-trillion-dollar corporation, it's like, here's a nickel, kid, go get yourself something nice, you know,
Yeah.
so. That's right. And what happened, you know, we've seen abatements. Abatements became popular, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years ago. I'm not sure how that ball started rolling. But what they do is they play communities off each other.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give me an abatement, we're going to go down the road. And at the end of the 10 years, there's no state law that says that they have to stick around. They could say, well, you know what, we need another abatement.
Yeah.
Or we're going to move down the road. So it's a game that's played. It's not a fun game as far as I'm concerned. But again, you know, if we're going to have this stuff, then they should be paying their fair share. Period. The end. So
Thank you.
and what we've seen. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Great question for those people, yeah. I mean, sure. Sure.
I can't understand. I can't understand.
Right. So why are they asking for these tax breaks? In my experience, 16 years of doing this, they're going to ask for everything they can because they can. Until decision makers say no to them, and it's really incumbent on the decision makers, our state lawmakers, our Congress people. Right. 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 Yeah. That's a good question. I'm not sure if they know that. Yeah. Well, right. Right. I mean, yeah. That's the issue, right? Like, if we continue. Right. If we continue to subsidize these big corporations, where's that going to leave us, right? So. Yeah, so that's okay. So the other issue is they have landowners, decision makers sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and again, that's been around for a long time. NDAs are not, if I had a magic wand, we would get rid of NDAs, but there are, I guess, certainly justifications from their end of things, but that really takes the ability of the community to find out what is going on. And I will say, you hear people say, I can't say anything about it because I have an NDA. Well, the city county councilor down in Marion County, City County Councilor Michael Paul Hart signed an NDA so he could find out what was going on. And he showed up to every meeting that Google held with the community. We didn't know it was Google at the time. And he learned, he did his homework, and he became the best advocate that we had down there. So if you hear somebody say, I signed an NDA, I can't talk about it, that's not true. In fact, we have to sign NDAs when we're dealing with the utility companies, and there's a line that you can't cross, right? And I'm not in all those conversations, thankfully. I got a big mouth, but that makes us a more effective advocate because we know what we can and can't say, and we have that knowledge and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But NDAs are the way that they, they'll come in, knock on the door, and say, and this has been reported. We've got some friends down in Kentucky. NBC News did a piece about it. But a doctor got a knock on the door, and it was a lawyer. And he said, "Hey, we want to give you guys $100,000 an acre." Well, who's it for? We can't tell you that. But if you want it, we'll have you sign this NDA, and he refused. And so, the other problem with the NDAs is we don't, even us signing NDAs, we don't know how much water, how much power these use. And again, how can you plan for your economy? How can you plan for your community? How can you plan for growth without having that information? And what's happened, I expect it's going to happen a little bit more, but in the future. But we've seen communities like Jeffersonville where Meta came in, they signed a contract with the utilities, and because they use so much energy, other economic development couldn't come into that community. It's going to take them 5 years before they have the capacity to be able to bring in other economic development that does provide real jobs, a lot of jobs. So we've seen that happen down in southern Indiana and Jeffersonville. We're seeing that happen in Indianapolis, and we're getting whispers of Indiana-Michigan territory. They're worried about that as well. And just the other day, I was curious. I was watching a reel, or whatever the kids are calling it nowadays, but on Instagram, and they talked about in London, there's suburbs in London where they've had informal moratoriums on new housing because of data centers. Like one place in London, for the last 3 years, they can't build any new houses because data centers are taking all the energy and water. So again, priorities. Are we going to give it, our resources to these companies, give them a bunch of tax breaks, or should we have, those resources? Almost done with the official stuff here. There's a lot of concerns beyond what I'm talking about. We've got construction. We talked to people in New Carlisle. There's been an uptick in moving violations and that sort of thing. A lot of construction issues there. Again, subsidies, property tax abatements, the water consumption.
Can you elaborate on the water consumption? I know a lot of people are concerned about that.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll dig into that.
We've got some numbers too.
Noise pollution. Last time we were here, there was an AC going 24/7, and I was like, that's kind of what you're dealing with. They say it's only 65 decibels at the property line. That's kind of the going rate, but it's non-stop. In the summertime, it kicks up because they got to keep those servers cooler. So that's an issue. Light pollution, visual aesthetics. Do you want a 300,000 square foot building in your backyard? And wetlands destruction, loss of farmland. To your question about water, you'll hear New Carlisle, they're doing an open loop system where they can take up to 24 million gallons a day of water out of the aquifer. Most developers now are saying closed loop system, but again, they're very vague on the details. So it uses a lot less, so it's still 1 million gallons a day. And that water gets used and reused, and they have to put different chemicals inside the water so it doesn't rust the pipes, it doesn't create bacteria. So that's an issue. And who's going to pay for that water if they're going to hook up to which Ray will talk more about what's happening locally, but is the municipality going to charge customers, or how's it going to work?
Does wastewater go into our lake?
I mean, we don't have any chance.
Then potentially, let's not do that.
I agree.
This whole area lives off of the lakes. If they even think for a minute they should do that, somebody should say, well, hell no, we're not doing that. I mean, I'm a pretty simple man, but that seems pretty simple to me.
They decided they're gonna go ahead and build a facility, and they're gonna make $15 million a year on taxes on it. So that's one thing you have to look at. They flew 17 people from Frankfurt out to New Jersey to evaluate and see if they liked the facility. They got the red carpet and everything. But it's gonna be a closed loop system, so they're not gonna use any water. And it's gonna be closed loop, but they won't tell us how much power they're gonna use. But just a few more things. The one in Lebanon is going to use 1,500 megawatts, and the city of Crawfordsville and Newport use 50. So that kind of gives you an idea of the amount of power we're going to be using. And the sound is a real big problem because it creates infrasound and low frequency noise, and which is going throughout the property.
Jeff is the expert on sound, so.
International Acoustical Research Organization, and we're doing testing in the wind tunnel. And so we're going to be in Benton County and this county testing to see if we're having the same problem with the peaks when they have spikes, which cause people to have headaches, memory, concentration problems, sleep, extreme sleep from that.
You just brought up the issue with the sound, how that impacts your health. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm making it very simple what Jeff just said, but that's a concern, absolutely. Yes, yes, ma'am. What kind of chemicals are in the water? The ground. From the data center, yeah. Yeah, there was just a report that came out about a month ago from The Guardian, and they were talking about PFAS, using PFAS, which are ferrochemicals. You can't filter that out in the end. My guess is, I mean, I know it's a list. Names always escape me, so right off the top of my head, benzene, I'm not sure, but a lot of that stuff could be proprietary too. We're not going to tell you what they're actually doing, and who's going to have to find out. So, but the problem is what happens is that water evaporates and goes into the air, or they got to discharge that water at some point, even in a closed loop system, right? They can't just continue on. I have heard, and I haven't seen it yet. They're talking about, kind of an antifreeze or antifreeze type of system. But the issue, my understanding, like developers want to get them online as quick as possible, and they want to do it as cheaply as possible, even though it's billions of dollars. All that stuff costs more money on the front end, but yes. Not necessarily. Sometimes they run it through, like the Franklin Township data center in Indianapolis that was going to go through back into the system in my utility company. I'm not sure if they were planning on doing a substation or anything like that, but yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a good friend of mine today called the Indiana Department of Natural Resources about this situation. If you all write this name and number down, she spoke with Mark Bash, 317-232-0154. And what Amy Snyder has been told is that the Indiana Department of Natural Resources cannot get involved at this point with it unless there's a problem, which means let's go ahead and put it in and something bad goes wrong, and then they'll step in. Okay, but what I thought was interesting, you have to have a permit. And if Woken applies for the permit, and the wells go dry around Wolcott, Wolcott has to pay for having new wells drilled, okay? Now, stop and think for a minute. If they use our good water in the aquifer and they drill us new wells, what do you think we're gonna have? Anybody else familiar with sulfur? They have black sulfur over there, trust me, I live over there that way. But anyway, and they said that, he said too, he's checked the information on different towns, how much water they have available. He said there's no way in the world Wolcott could keep up with 1.2 million gallons. Like I said, the DNR cannot do anything yet. The permit has to be obtained from the DNR well division. And if the company submits the permits and the wells go dry, then they would have to replace them also. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to be real concerned about what our water quality is. But anyway, and he said to share this. His number again was Mark Bash, 317-232-0154.
They won't get into it until something goes bad.
I think, are we all caught up on why data centers are a problem? And I can stop talking and give it to Ray here, but I appreciate you bearing with us. Again, technical difficulties
Just
aside.
one question, Rick.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that several communities were able to put a stop to these.
Yes.
What instrument did they use to do that? Because I'm sure this group of people here, we don't have the clout to do that. So how did they do that?
Well, let's see, 12, 13, 11 of them stopped at the planning commission. I'm sorry, at the rezone level. So
that's
they
where you
went
have to stop
in
it.
front of the planning commission. Either the planning commission said no, which the commissioners can still say yes or no, depending on, like, they don't have to abide by the planning commission's suggestion. But it was a political exercise. They got in front of their commissioners and talked with them. Not necessarily just yelling at them, but like developing relationships and saying, hey, we really need to slow this train down. And the more they looked at it, this doesn't happen everywhere, but the more they looked at it, they're like, it's probably not the best idea in our community. So there's been 3 lawsuits that have been filed so far, 4 technically, but 3 communities have filed lawsuits.
So we would have to get a lawyer then, or?
There's that. There's been multiple counties who have adopted moratoriums, multiple counties who have adopted ordinances. I would suggest if you're gonna do the ordinance piece or the moratorium, that you all need to be in the room for that discussion, because if it's left up to decision, it's not a knock on the decision makers here, but if it's left up to the decision makers and the industry, it's gonna come out for.
Well, as we say, we've talked to them about it, we need engineers and people that know data centers to be able to provide decent ordinances. We are just people.
Right.
And that's what we're asking our commissioners to hire somebody to actually provide us with decent ordinances.
An independent third party would be the best, yeah. And just on that note, and I'll pass the mic over to Ray. In Indianapolis, it's a different system. They actually have to go in front of the neighborhood association people and say, hey, we want to build this thing. And the Franklin Township Civic League, they were skeptical, and had the Google lawyer there 3 times. We had like 3 other meetings in between there, just the community. But eventually, Google came out with their commitments. And in other communities, they don't have to do that. You don't have to tell, it's just in between, But the group that I was working with, Protect Franklin Township, they hired an attorney to look over those commitments because they were like, it doesn't look very good. And just so you know, like the Franklin Township Civic League, they don't have a lawyer. So it's, to your point, who are the decision makers? Who are your county officials listening to when they make those decisions? it should be somebody who's well-versed in all this stuff that's gonna be protected, yeah, yep. Anyway, I'll stop talking now, thank you.
That's fine. Well, and apologies again about our technical difficulties. I don't want to hold you guys here too long. This has been a pretty good conversation, I feel. It's been pretty civil. There's been a lot of good questions. I want to finish that up, but I do want to, Bryce has been nice enough to kind of give us a general background on data centers, right? I want to give you an update on what is actually going on here in White County, and then we're going to kind of turn it over to a Q&A. I know there are some elected officials and members of a task force in the audience. I'd like to invite them to answer questions if they can, if they are so obliged. So, I posted a slideshow on our group. Fortunately, it's Facebook, so not everybody may have it. But I'm going to pull that up rather quickly here. Kind of a brief timeline of events in this county. If you were, like me, paying attention, right? Because I'm a Democrat chair, and that's my job, to pay attention to what politically is going on in this county. If you were just paying attention on the surface, all you would have known was July 14th July 14th of this year, a rezone was proposed for property in the Mac Park over here in Woken, right? I'm seeing a lot of people nod their heads, you're aware. You will also know that that rezone was applied for by the Redevelopment Commission. And we'll get into some of the reasoning behind that. August 8th, or that rezone on that date, the APC felt that there wasn't enough information at the time, so they tabled the request for the rezone. It couldn't go anywhere until the next APC meeting. In the meanwhile, we had our first town hall. That was August 8th. August 11th, we had the second APC meeting. The rezone was, I believe, given a favorable recommendation by the APC, passed to the commissioners. August 18th, so 7 days later, the commissioners passed the rezone. On August 20th, two neighbors who unfortunately couldn't be here, Mark and Amy Snyder, filed a lawsuit against the county regarding the rezone. Their lawyer's main reasoning was that there was not disclosure for the reason for the rezone, which I'm not a lawyer. My opinion is you needed it, but the courts will settle that. In the meanwhile, their lawyer was kind enough to file a Freedom of Information Act. And as a result of that, we got a treasure trove of documents. And I will give my emails, anybody who wants it, I can send them to you. They're public documents, and I feel like they belong to the public. They're not to be held, and I don't want to pick snippets out of it and try to paint a narrative, if that makes sense, right? But for the brevity of time that we have, we're going to have to kind of do that. So we all know we didn't hear anything of a data center until July, the beginning of July of this year. The White County Economic Development Organization knew well of it. They were first contacted by the developer for the Woken Data Center July 25th, 2024. And I don't think that everything that they get that they get any email needs to necessarily be given to the public, right? I don't run and tell you every little thing that happens on the farm. But it got serious within a couple months, and we know that from the disclosure because our White County Economic Development Director, Randy Strausser, wrote notes in the margin of these emails. How much power the developer wanted, which was 40 to 60 megawatts initially for 6 to 24 months, 400 to 500 megawatts in 4 to 6 years, and maybe, I think that says 500 gigawatts in 6 to 10 years. So these are numbers now, right? He also knew 322 acres is the size of the data center that the developer wanted. In that same note, which if you're on the Facebook group, you can kind of see these emails that I screenshotted. He's got circled planned development zone. So we go to and I'm sorry, this would be better on a projector, September 4th of last year. He's got notes of what to do. He asked the developer to give him a good idea of what kind of zoning they would like. Then he wanted teams set up with county planning and the zoning office to discuss the rezoning process. He's got also in his notes what the developer wanted. Does he want I-2, I-3? He also has building height written, 75 foot. Fuel storage for generators. And the size of the building, it's written 4 buildings. What I'm trying to get across here is that it seems to me, this is just my conclusion, I'm not trying to slander anybody, but if you're getting those details, wouldn't you say you kind of have a good idea of what the project is, right? Yeah. Okay. So he then writes, Friday, April 4th, 2025. He's got a meeting with the developer. And he writes in this email, the list of those needed to attend should include all 3 commissioners, council president, Butch Kramer, redevelopment president, Janet Faker, Libby Ballou, which is the auditor, Jenny Lynn, which is, I'm assuming, referring to Jenny Lynn Kybers, the director of area plan, Rick Hall, and he goes through a number of names that we don't necessarily need to get through all of them. But I want you to remember, Redevelopment Commission, Janet Faker, and I want you to remember Jenny Lynn Kybers, director of area plan. Because that's last year. Okay. Now, let's get back to our public timeline. Let's come back to July of this year. These are the meeting minutes from that meeting. Director Kybers explained to the board, this is to the area plan board, that the proposed zoning map amendment involves consideration of change of the zoning district and land identification from A1, general agriculture, to I3. The proposed rezone is to align the zoning district with the objectives of the 2017 White County Comprehensive Plan. Now, does that sound like that's an honest answer to our area plan board? Because to me, that doesn't, right? I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone, but if you're in a meeting with a developer about a piece of property and they're asking for a rezone, why would you not just say that if you knew? Now, again, I can't prove she was in that meeting, but I can prove she was invited to that meeting.
That's why we lost thousands of acres to solar panels, because
That's
nobody
what
talked to anybody.
And what upsets me is I don't think there's a vast conspiracy going on. I think that there are members of our county government in the courthouse who are not being honest with members of area plan. I don't even think they're being fully honest with members of county council. And that bothers me. I think that should bother anyone, right? Why are we hiding? If we, to finish off, I will say this. In one of the emails, there was a snippet from Mr. Randy Strausser talking about a quote for a water study. The quote was whatever, I don't remember. But he wrote to the person who did the water study, well, it seems kind of high, something along those lines. I think it's best if we just keep things to our chest for the moment. That's our economic development director.
That's transparency.
That's not appropriate. Nobody should be hiding things from commissioners, from council, from public. I don't know what the answer is. Bryce will tell you he's opposed to every data center. The data center up in Hammond, I had the pleasure of touring. In Hammond, they put it on the Big Lake, Michigan, right? Plenty of water. They put it on the site of an old power plant. Plenty of transmission lines. Then they got that data center to build them a firehouse and fund a scholarship program for pretty much every kid who graduated with a C or above average for the next 20 years. That's a dang good deal, right? But you have to weigh in any community the costs and the benefits of it. I don't know if it's necessarily right for this community, but the point that I want to get across, and the point that I think we all need to take to the commissioners is, if we can't be honest with each other, how can we make this decision as a community, right? So with that, again, I will open it up to Q&A. We already kind of did that a little bit. if there's elected officials, I know in response to these data centers, the commissioners, to their credit, passed a 6-month moratorium. So it's not, I think we got, what, 2 months out of that 6 months? Is that correct? What's that? No, it's not. They can remove it. And in the meanwhile, they did form a task force in APC, which has been working to address the ordinances because we had no ordinances on the book. That's some positives. And I think we have a couple members of the task force here in the audience, so you could ask them some questions. So with that, do we have any questions, and do we have any elected officials who'd like to come up? Or candidates?
So when they rezone, that kind of left them with the door, right?
My opinion would be yes, yes.
So how do we stop them? What can this group do to stop them?
I think what this group could do to stop them, one is to put public pressure on our commissioners, let them know that you want an endless moratorium. Now, the county attorney, I believe, might be quoting wrong, has doubted whether that a long-term moratorium would stand up to legal pressure. She said we might get sued. I will say, as a lawyer once told me, just because you can sue doesn't mean you can win, right? So that's what you can do tomorrow. Write your commissioners, tell them, hey, extend this moratorium. Another thing is to talk to those members of the task force, ask them for tougher ordinances. Yes.
Is there anybody having actual conversations about why they want the data center to come to White County?
Yeah, there are people in this county who believe, because, and I don't want to.
My question though, Ray, is the people who want it, why do they want it? And are we having a conversation that's an actual conversation between whether we actually want it, or is it because they're being paid off NDAs, or I mean, what's
You know, I don't think that our elected officials, and I don't want to think that they are getting paid off. I think that there are some elected officials who are misguided on the benefits, right? And I think that's the disagreement. They think it's a good fit for our community, and they think we can make a lot of money with it. And I would challenge back,
How they make the money?
what's that?
How they make the money?
Typically, in they call it an economic development agreement. In an agreement like that, we give them a tax abatement, and then they make payments in lieu of taxes, right? I would argue they're still getting a discount, because if they weren't getting a discount, my logic is, why would they do it? That seems kind of common sense to me. But to the sake of the EDA, the logic of accountants like Baker Tilly, which do a lot of stuff for municipalities and for counties, their logic is, well, if you didn't give them the tax abatement, they wouldn't bill in the first place, so you wouldn't get any money. That's their logic. I kind of think that's flawed, but that's just me. So, yes.
Yes, and they signed a non-disclosure agreement, the commissioners or anyone that
From my conversations with the commissioners, they were under non-disclosure agreements. As far as area plan, I am not 100% certain if members of the area plan board signed any non-disclosure agreements. I can't
So
speak.
they're able to hide things from the public by using that disclosure agreement. And
Yes.
that's something we really pushed them on not to do that. And frankly, they haven't signed one yet, but they're still not telling us who owns it or who's financing it. So that needs to be addressed, I think.
I think that's, yeah, to your point, you're saying with non-disclosure agreements, we don't know who owns it. Only through this Freedom of Information Act do we know the name of the developer for Woken. Only through, honestly, I will tell you, I had heard rumors of a data center in Monon. I lived in Monon Township for a while. Until we got the documents that showed there were studies going on for a data center, and we paid money for those studies, the county did. I had no idea that was going to happen in Monon either. It's pretty well hidden. And, I mean, you have to, I understand some of the argument that there has to be some privacy in making the deal. right? If you're in business, you don't want to necessarily go screaming about your deal out on the street, right? But at the same time, because there are elected officials, I feel they owe us basic transparency. Like, for example, the developer, Blue Ladder is one of them. They should have to say, hey, I'm Blue Ladder and I want, or Woken, I'm sorry. Blue Ladder is Woken. Hey, I'm Blue Ladder and I want to build a data center in Woken. That should be the start of the conversation right there with the company. Solid. Yes? I said such to the head of White County Economic Development. I believe my words were something along the lines of, if it was a good deal, you wouldn't have to hide it. Amen. I mean, that just, again, common sense stuff.
How do we get a referendum so we, the people, can say yes or no that we even want this?
You know, Bryce could probably answer that better. I
think that's what needs to happen. Most people don't even know what's going on. They're gonna vote, you're gonna vote yes or no. And that, I think put an end to all this.
Indiana is a state that has no referendum, no referendum rule. We're a non-referendum rule state. And there's states out west, if we get enough signatures, we can put it on the ballot and vote on it. But we don't have that here in Indiana.
There should be something that we should be able to do as voters.
You can vote. I mean, that's.
Vote them out.
Right, vote for a new commission.
Vote for that.
Too late then.
I encourage you, many people. You can vote, you can also run. I would love to see, I don't know how many Democrats we have in the crowd, but I'd love to see plenty of Democrats on the ballot, and I'd love to see plenty of Republicans on the ballot. I feel like you can't go wrong with too many choices, right? Is there any questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to tell y'all that I'm going to run for state rep, and my name is Ashley. Thank you. I'm not good at this. Okay, I'm not good at this. I don't want to do this. Okay, I'm a very private person, but I feel a duty to do it for my kids and my grandkids that might come along the way, and.
Can you tell us where you're from? City?
I live in Brookston right now. I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and I've been here in Indiana since 2013. I came here because with my family to take a job at Purdue University. I don't work for Purdue University anymore, but I did, and I'm a soil scientist. I'm all for farmers. Protecting resources. Soil, a lot of people don't think of it as a non-renewable resource, but it is a non-renewable resource. Water in the aquifer is a non-renewable resource. Ask the question, what's the recharge to the aquifer? What's the removal rate? What's the recharge? It's a non-renewable resource.
I'd just like to point out too, I have not met him in person. This was not a setup. He's a Democrat though. So
when I see a woman stand up and make a stand against somebody, and a man is going to bully her because she's got a different opinion of him for the same party. I could be a Republican, I could be a Democrat. I got the same values as everybody in here. I want to keep my kids healthy and happy. I want to have a job, get my house paid off. Basic stuff.
his name was Ashley Bennett. Oh, we have another gentleman waiting. Oh, we got. Do I have to have a Republican and a Democrat event?
Yes, I am a Republican. I'm Jim Baldwin, retired from the White County Sheriff's Office. I'm from Burnsville. I've been in your community since 1993. I was in Desert Storm. I left the military. I came here. I became a deputy, and I fell in love with this community. That's why I'm running for the White County Commission. I feel like people do not have a say-so, just like, I hear here tonight, okay? I can't say anything that he hasn't said about a data center that I don't agree with. All that I agree with, 100%. We don't need it. I'm not saying that growth is bad in our county, but I don't think that fits in our county, period. And I don't think the public is aware of what's going on. And that's why I'm running, bottom line. I've got kids, I've got grandkids. I want what I built my life to hand down to my kids, okay? That's where I'm going with that. But in the same sense, I also feel, and it also was mentioned, Democrat and Republican. This is not about Democrats and Republicans right now. This is about citizens of White County. So if we join hands together May 5th, then we start changing commissioners and start making this stuff transparent. That word, I'll tell you right now, is a well-used word in politics. I am not a politician. I'm going to tell you that right now. I will stop it. I've been a deputy too long. I've been an officer. I'm still an SRO at Frontier. Okay? I protect 700 kids a day. Okay? That's what I do. I look at these little kids' eyes every day and think, what are you going to have tomorrow? Because if we keep moving in the direction we're moving in White County, we all might as well pack up. If our property values are going to be trash, we're not going to have anything left for our kids in White County. So it's not about a party. It's about we've got to join hands. You know, if you got to go to my way, you know, whatever, I'm here for it. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to fight this fight until May 5th, and then I'll know if I won. So I ask for your support, because I will fight the fight. If anybody knows me, I'm verbal. I will stand up for you folks 100%. Just ask around. People know me as a deputy. I made a lot of unpopular decisions, but I tell you right now, they were for the good of the cause. Okay? Thank you.
Well, that was an interesting introduction. I feel like this is a candidate revival. Do we have anyone else feeling the move to run? I know I will say, I know there are many other candidates and officials in the crowd. And I will tease you guys, we have some Democrats we're going to be running out this fall. I think you're going to be very pleased with them. With that, is there any questions? Can we get kind of to the task force? Does anybody have any questions on what they're doing? Because I'd love to invite any members who happen to be here that'd like to answer any questions. Is there anything other than just putting pressure on the commissioners? I wish I had a better answer. I think that that's about all we have. We have voting and we have pressure. That's how our country works. And running problems. I mean, that's about it. Well, do you want to come down and speak real quick? Okay. All right.
Kelly Jones, I really do want to know if who in the county is saying that this is a good fit and what is the reasoning? I mean, if we're talking about the tax abatements and then the payments that they're actually going to make, where is the money? Like, what does it look like? Where is it going? What's the point? And if it's not there, then why are we even talking about it?
Mike Smollett is very much for it.
Well, no, I know. He says it's for it, but
You go ahead.
Or he says it's going to bring us.
So
it's going to bring growth. What's
So there's the thing. I don't want to always be the one to have to defend White County politicians. Our county, because of state bills and things like that, we're always going to have a tax revenue problem, right? And that's just kind of the fact of life. The state put us in a bad position with a couple of things they've done. One of them, I know you might have heard, has anybody heard of a road tax that the county's talking about? Okay. So the county's talking about a road tax, and I don't want to see it. I know most people don't want to see it. I ran for council last fall, lost, and I can say I probably wouldn't want to be put in the tight position of voting for it right now. Because what the state has said, or threatened, the state has threatened that if we don't put a road tax on the county, on all the vehicles in the county, they will cut funding from the state level for our roads. So you've got to get the same funding, you've got to pass a tax and tax it, right? Those are two really bad options for a county. That's the kind of things they face in the county council. Another one was, we talked about SB 1, I don't know if anyone's heard of that. The state passed their property tax reform that Braun kind of ran on. I can say Braun has a talent as our governor in being able to come up with a policy that angers everybody all at once. I mean, I seriously, we made a joke in a party that we were going to start a petition online to ask Governor Braun to please run for president so he wouldn't be governor of Indiana anymore. But, and there might be Braun supporters in there, but it drastically changed the funding for property taxes, and it kind of put municipalities and counties on the hook for the tax cuts he was proposing, right? The state got to keep their funding, but the counties lost theirs. So you have municipalities that are caught now, right? They're caught by state policies that have encouraged things like data centers, and they're caught by the state who's saying less revenue, less revenue, less revenue. See how they're kind of boxing them in to where they don't really have any good options? That's the defense of let's put a data center in the county. That's the best I can give you. If there's anybody else who'd like to do a better one,
there's a theme here that Ray just brought up again. A lot of these policies happen at the state level. And 16 years into this job, every year I see industry, utilities, whoever it is, coming to the state house. Please, can you help us out a little bit more? And it's like, where is the help for everyday Hoosiers? So just get it off my chest, but I just want to bring it up because the state house session is coming fairly soon. Starting in January, they were talking about starting in December, but we know there's going to be good legislation on data centers. There's going to be some bad legislation on data centers. We know there's going to be some good legislation on utilities. Let's lower people's costs. There's probably going to be some bad stuff. And I think it's really important. A lot of people, and I'm not knocking anybody here, I didn't know who my state representatives and senator was before I started at CAC. But a lot of people don't think about that. They're thinking about what's happening in Washington, D.C., but folks in Indianapolis have more control over our day-to-day lives than people in Washington, D.C. I think it's important to understand that. And my plug, and then I'll pass it back to Ray, but we do keep track of all these pieces of legislation for you all. So hop on our website, it's Citizens Action Coalition, citact.org, and you can sign up for action alerts and that sort of thing, because we have people in the State House lobbying on your behalf against the army of lobbyists that they have, and we will let folks know when to take action and that sort of thing. But I think it's really crucial to make sure that it's not just about, it really is, the State House has tremendous importance in all these decisions. So with that, and I want to say thank you again for having me here.
with that, is there any more questions? Yes. Well, I would say, one, pray that lawsuit works, if you would like to stop the one that we're looking. That would revert it back to where they're gonna have to actually go through and have another APC meeting, and they're gonna have to do things correctly, in my opinion, and then we can have this conversation again. if we have a change, if that can happen, and then we have a change of commissioners, or maybe even change of possibly members of county council, you could stop it that way. I say county council because, let's be frank on it, a lot of it is, it's like Halloween, if you got the bowl of candy out, the kids will come, right? We're offering tax abatements to these data centers. If you have members of county council say, no way, I'm not doing this, the data centers are gonna say, man, I'm going someplace else, they don't want me here. Sorry. Yeah. Public pressure, I can tell you, not really an elected official, but quasi-elected official, when you get somebody pestering on you, there's an old, my grandfather would say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If the commissioners see constant pressure, they're gonna be swayed by that.
No, they aren't. Not happening. Not happening.
Did they say that? I didn't tell you. You know, I don't know if I can really speak to that. I don't know if it would stop them. I mean, it definitely throws a deer in the wrench in the engine. Thank you. See, and that's another thing that I'd like to point out for that task force. I've watched some of the outcome. I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, because that task force has done some good, right? We can't say, well, I didn't get everything that I wanted, so it's terrible. The task force put some good things in there. The task force was meant, though, to be a work in progress, from my understanding, and I feel like continued attendance to those task force meetings and pressures on members of the task force to add more protections is going to get more done. Yes. So I don't know for people. So Janet Gross, she's a local town council, brings up a good point. She's gone, for people over there, if you couldn't hear her. She's gone to many of the task force meetings. They are listening to people. They are taking considerations. I don't want to throw Jeff Demerly's email out there, but Jeff Demerly has said, if anyone feels that they have, they want to write a piece of ordinance and propose it to the task force will listen to it. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be an expert, they will give it consideration. Yes? Did people over there hear that? Yeah. So if you have things that you'd like to be read into the record or that you'd like presented to the task force, and you can do this with area plan too. If you email Jenny Lynn Kivers, who's the area plan director, you can ask that email to be read, and it will be read to members of the task force or members of area plan. I would recommend, if it's for the task force, to try to denote that so that area plan doesn't have to necessarily hear something that has nothing to do with what's going on. You show is going to be received as more. So at this point, again, if anyone couldn't hear, write a letter, old-fashioned, put a stamp on it, put it in the mail. They're going to respond to that more in an email because it took you more time to do it, right? And then you were mad about whatever, not for just 5 minutes to write an email. You were mad enough to sit down, write this out, put it in an envelope, take it to the post office, a lot of effort. showing up to meetings too. I can't say that enough. Elected officials may not always like a packed room, but it shows that people are upset, right? And they're going to respond to that. To my knowledge, it has not had a environmental impact study or a public comment period on it. I know they have done a water study preliminarily and looked at options for that. Yes, hydrological, and they did, which if, I'm assuming a lot of people are here from Wolcott, the tabletop study came to a very interesting conclusion that I think we all could have guessed. Is there water in Wolcott? No. Well, dang, how much did we spend to learn that, you know?
$67,000.
That ridiculous. Paid by the taxpayers.
There's so much sulfur
Don't we
in
have a lot of money?
water
Unless it's farming
that,
community, right?
and oil.
Coming out of
That
her ears.
When the tank gets empty, they light the water on fire.
That would not surprise me. I know, I actually had a neighbor, I live in Monon, who drilled a well, and he actually hit oil. Not enough to be rich, just enough to make a big mess. We have limestone deposits. It's a fact of life.
I've got property rights that my aunt sold.
Address your question. They actually have
oil
to
in
get permits through
on the
IDEM
property
for
down there.
diesel generators, and depends on the water situation, if they're gonna discharge somewhere in a creek and that sort of thing, but this goes back to the State House. We have a IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management. A couple years ago, it's all blurred together, but State House passed a law that said they couldn't pass any regulations above and beyond the federal minimum. So IDEM is really kind of handcuffed when it comes to regulating, and I hate to say this, but they've kind of turned into a rubber stamp on a lot of this stuff. So when you hear, I bring this up because I hear that at the State House, well, IDEM's gonna make sure that everybody's protected. And it's like, are they? I mean, you know, so.
They haven't got enough reinforcements and then not enough people.
Okay, yes. You know. And I just want to say too, we're nonpartisan, just for the record. I'm not going to hang out with this guy too much longer. I'm joking. But no, it's really kind of it's frustrating because as communities, we see these communities they're painted into a corner from the action of the State House or how we fund our services. And instead of having a broader conversation, like they should be coming, state lawmakers should be coming to you and asking you, hey, what do you all want to see in your community? It's all just very top down. And we'll roll the dice because, you know, big tech came in and said we're going to do data centers everywhere. Well, they never asked you that. They never asked any Hoosiers. So I think that moving forward, I mean, there needs to be a better community conversation about this across the state. And that's the frustration is a lot of it's like, hey, what? I thought I voted for these guys. Why are they doing this to me? That sort of thing. So.
They do. If you also, the White County Data Center Group, usually the task force meetings, Amy Snyder will post, hey, this is coming up, to kind of remind people to go to them. December 9th, okay. November 9th next year, everybody come back, talk about it again.
So funny.
I want to say too about the water study, because there was one done for Wolcott. The option that was recommended, which does not mean that that's going to be taken, was to build a well field, and I believe it was further south toward Round Grove, and to pump the water. The cost was, I might be remembering this wrong, it was either 168 or 198. million to do that.
168.
The developer may pay for that, or maybe the county, I don't know that. This is just, it was just an estimate, yeah. Yeah, the county includes us, yeah.
There are some companies that will say, hey, I can be out of compliance and get rid of whatever, because of whatever reason, and you give us poisons to the community, but it's only going to cost you $200 a day. So,
I mean,
it's better than just be out of compliance.
the famous one of Jeff Bezos, I don't know if you've heard of that, he's got a zoning violation in his house with 2 high hedges. He's just like, oh, $300 a day? It doesn't matter, I'll pay that, nothing to me. So.
Yeah, there was a discussion about Google's lawyer down in Franklin Township. Hey, there's safeguards in place. Well, there's a noise ordinance in Indianapolis. The fine is $100 a day. So it's like, write me a check for that up front. You know, there's not enough teeth to his regulatory action.
That's something I would honestly recommend writing a task force about, upping those fines. In area planning in general. I think area planning does a better job policing.
It's locked in for some reason.
Police pass out on his time to drink. Who's going to police it?
Well, theoretically, the ATC is supposed to, but that's not going to happen.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a really good point. I don't know if you guys could hear it over there, but you don't want to pick up a dollar or step over a dollar to pick up a dime. He brought this up. There's only so much water in this community, right? Okay, this data center is going to bring us this much. In economics, I remember in high school, I didn't listen that much in that class, but they talked about something called an opportunity cost, right? If I go take my family's farm and I put it all in corn, I can't grow soybeans on it. That's a fact of life. If we take all the water and we put it in a data center, if GM comes tomorrow and wants to build a big factory for water pumps and they need water, we don't have it, GM says, hey, I'm going to go someplace else then. So we have to think about that, and that's hopefully for community conversations, members of the council will consider.
Hopefully.
To drive the point home, don't take the $1 million prize today to have a data center that's already obsolete, that hasn't been built yet, that's going to sit empty, just like Magnetation has. Because, as I was told, the redevelopment commission is to develop what happens after a company leaves. You know, they're supposed to know what that is. And obviously we don't know how that works because Magnetation is still empty. And they rigged a lot of companies for millions of dollars, which, again, those companies, that was their fault for letting them get that far in. But as a community, we have eyesores. And I think there's a lot better use of that Mac Park than what a data center is going to bring. And I know people there don't agree, but.
And there's a thing. I think it's a really good point. There is no magic pill. We're not going to have one project that's going to fund us forever. We've got to stop looking for that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Amen. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, farming has fed our community. We got to talk about how.
I have a question for you, Ray, and for Bryce. With everything we've heard here tonight, can you tell me at least one thing that would benefit the people? Yes.
Well, I think Bryce may disagree with me a little bit, but I talked about the deal that was inked up in Hammond. That deal, Hammond is a city of about 70,000 people, so bigger than this county. They had that data center build a new firehouse, and then they funded a scholarship program that basically, and I graduated from Hammond, so I know about this. If you graduated with a C average, they paid 4 years of college tuition anywhere in the state. And they funded that for the next 20 years. That's it. If you could bring that to White County and we had the water, man, that's a pretty good deal. I think even Bryce was reluctant to say that, but that's getting a lot out of that company. So they can bring good, it's just again, are we giving up the resources wisely to deal with it?
I don't disagree with that. I mean, you know, it's a different situation in Hammond. It's again, a merchant data center for infrastructure of the internet. It's not an AI data center. And I think they did it about as good as you can do it by saying, hey, we're going to pay more than what these others are paying. It was 2019 when they built that. But it's one of those things. I mean, if again, do we feel like we actually need these things? But if you're going to do it, they should be real community partners. So not just here's a nickel kid again. I guess the best thing that you can say about it is providing jobs. It's construction jobs. It's right. I'm trying to find a silver lining here somewhere. Right. And unfortunately, right now, somebody said a few months ago that our economy is three data centers in a trench coat. And you know, they're coming everywhere, and this is all of a sudden this is supposed to be us, the future. I don't know. It's really hard for me to say. I mean, again, if they do their fair share, if they pay for their electricity and not put that on the grandma and grandpa's back, that would be a different situation. I think people would be a lot less upset. But I mean, the reality is we're not even having those conversations here. And the State House session starts fairly soon. I'm sure we will, but it's like what? I don't know. Well, I will say the best thing is the communities come together.
I will say too, is there anybody from MoDOT here? Okay, that's good. I'm very glad. I was kind of worried that we would only have Wolcott again. So,
It sounds like it's going to be, if I'm understanding it correctly, they're wanting to put it up by the big power line. Actually, the closer to Buffalo.
well, it is kind of between, the location that, I don't know how much people are aware, but it's between MoDOT and Buffalo. What was talked about for MoDOT? I don't know what deal's on the table again. Most of this is covered up, and that's part of the problem. How do you come to a conclusion that we're not going to be honest with each other? MoDOT, we all know, needs a water treatment facility, right? The thing that I would say is the size of the data center they're talking about, if it is the property we're talking about, way bigger than that one in Hammond, right? Huge compared to it. Hammond got 20 years of all that payment into that scholarship program. For a city of 70,000, if all they're going to give us in MoDOT is a water treatment facility, we're not getting a very good deal. You know, I mean, it's like me saying, hey, my car needs a motor. Well, hey, you got a Cadillac? I'll trade you for my Chevy Cavalier. It runs. Well, that's not really a good deal. The guy got a running car, but it was at a high cost.
So if we wanted to, we ask the company or ask Eric Plant, what do we get out of it? Can we make a list of demand? You want to put this here? What do we do? Our city, our county needs this and this and this. Is that something to give the Eric Plant?
I think the task force kind of has addressed that. Something that if anybody can hear, she said, what can we ask the county, this is what we want, make a list. I think the task force has kind of addressed that. I was very disappointed. When I spoke to the developer, I shouldn't say this in public, hopefully nobody's recording it, but the developer told me, if a data center comes to your community and says, we will not commit to a closed-loop water system, he said, don't just walk away, run. Get away as fast as you can. It is a bad deal. He said those are fly-by-night developers who are looking for a quick buck, and off they're going to go when the buck's no longer there. The task force, it was proposed and shot down. They wanted to have a requirement that if a data center came in, they had to use a closed-loop system. Closed loop versus open. Closed loop is just like I work in automotive, so I use a lot of car references. It's like your car. You put the antifreeze in, and it's there, right? Hopefully, you're not having to keep refilling it all the time if everything's functioning right. I think if I could tell you guys to do anything, email that task force and beg them for that closed loop requirement. All of our communities are going to benefit from that. Deep water injection, that's, well, I feel like that's, I don't know if anybody remembers about a year or two ago, the carbon sequestration that they tried to pull in the county. I feel like that's another thing with that. And they were gonna put one of those 600 yards from where we farm. Ooh, we weren't happy about that. For a deep well injection. See, and I don't know if you guys heard that, but her brother, they wouldn't give details. She wanted to buy land, but wouldn't give details. I hate to say, but is that how who does business like that, right? Like, we got an auto parts store up north, could you imagine? Yeah, I'm gonna sell you parts. I'm not gonna tell you how much it costs, but I wanna sell you parts. You're not gonna talk to me, end story. Any other questions?
We're landowners and property owners, and I know that the White County water table is already down. We own a property down by Brooklyn, and it's a pond off the interstate, and it's down 4 feet from last year. And that's not good. And it just sucks the water right out of your plant, and will happen.
Well, I think that's a very valid point. I mean, ultimately, if you're on well water, I'm on the same. I'm in, technically, if anyone knows the town of Lee is where I'm at. A little town that everyone forgot. But I'm in one corner of the county, she's down in Brookston, that's the other one. Our water's still great, guys. It's coming out of the same aquifer. When I use water, technically, it's coming from the same spigot she is. So, with that, what's that? The next meeting to pack is probably going to be that task force meeting, which
December 9th.
What did you say it was? December 9th. So 8:30 a.m. That's another. Oh, that's going to be at the courthouse. Yeah. Second floor. Is there any other questions? Because I don't like to go too late here. That would be my opinion. They don't want people there. I've heard it's for security reasons. I can say, yeah. If somebody wants to run on a platform or moving meetings to the evening and wants to run as a Democrat, give me my number.
They couldn't because the previous commissioners set it up so it couldn't be changed this year.
That's why we held on.
So maybe 2 years down the
So
road.
is
Yeah.
there any?
But not until, okay?
Is it okay if I dismiss?
At least that's what I heard.
Okay. Thank you.